Bom dia a todos e todas. Hello, everybody. Good morning. It's for us a pleasure to be with Professor Christian Montès in this lecture of the discipline. Professor Montès is a geographer. He has all his career in geography, and he has a PhD in geography at the University of Lyon. Nowadays, he's the full professor at the Université of Lyon 2, and is the head of the social science doctoral school. And he is the manager, dean of the doctoral school in Lyon, mostly more specifically related to geography, planning, and urbanism. He, as a researcher of the EVS, Environmental Ville et Société Laboratory of the university that's linked to the IMU, the Intelligence du Monde Urbain, a huge laboratory at the university. The recent focus of Professor Montès' research is related to the vertical dimension in urban morphology, imaginaries and representations of the vertical city, in such a way that in the crossroads of geography and urbanism, professors are regularly invited to expose their potentials in lectures, articles, and seminars. So, Christian, thank you very much for being with us today, and the word's yours. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm very sorry for the delay, but there was a technical glitch, and well, I'm talking about the post-pandemic metropolis, but I'm speaking from a small village in the countryside, showing that the global digital village is not yet a reality. So sorry again, and no. I hope you are seeing everything. So this is a beautiful picture of a very dense city, one of the densest in the world, Hong Kong, which is supposedly what the post-pandemic metropolis will not look like. Well, some people at least want that to be. So as an introduction, well, my talk will be about a lot of questions and not a lot of answers. I'm not very good at forecasting the future, so I will let you think about things and not giving you a lot of answers. Well, the first point is that the pandemic is an emergency, indeed, and that emergencies often bring topics to the forefront that should have been addressed before. So it's almost nothing new under the sun. It's topics we knew we had to address, but we didn't address. And sometimes pandemics act as engines of transformation. A lot of people, but a minority, wanted already to happen or to occur. And the pandemic is a crisis. Indeed, it's an emergency, it's a crisis. But after crisis, we know that there might be changes. Sometimes they are paradigmatic, in science, for instance. Sometimes they are systemic, or sometimes they are not. So are we here in the midst of cyclical, temporary changes, or are we just on the eve of real structural changes? And the answer will be, well, the future will tell. Some people are calling for structural changes, paradigmatic changes, systemic changes, and some are saying, well, it's a crisis, it's an emergency. While once the emergency will be over, well, all these temporary changes will also be over. And also, each time there is a crisis, the death, at least in the 20th century, the death of the metropolis is predicted, or the need for radical change of settlement patterns is advised. And, well, when we look at the past, each time the metropolis has reinforced itself. The plague, the Spanish flu, even the Second World War, big catastrophes like that. So would this pandemic be a game changer this time? And why? well, at least it is a period where there is more rapid testing of ideas and changes, because everybody is keen on putting his or her imprint on the new metropolis by bringing to the forefront new ideas, innovative ideas. So there are a lot of research projects, a lot of companies are bringing new, or what they call new solutions to the fore. But one has to be cautious. Before changing anything, we have to really know the pandemic, because there have already been changes between wave 1 and wave 2. Wave 1 was about metropolises, indeed. It was São Paulo, Milano, Paris, New York were just the epitome of the pandemics. And they sparked a lot of comments on the unsustainability of such monstrous settlements. But wave 2 is going to the remotest part of the countryside, even the city in which I'm living, the city, well, I don't know, 1,800 people. So the debate, and in the United States, for instance, it goes to Wyoming or South Dakota. Wyoming is huge, with about 500,000 people and 230,000 square kilometers. I hear no more metropolis. How do a vulnerable society in which metropolises are a point, a very big point indeed, but only one point? And so we also have to remember that the pandemic is not over yet, and that there might be a different third wave or fourth wave, even with vaccine. We also have to remember that several solutions, or most solutions, adopted during the... So will it be return to normalcy or creating a new world? Because resilience, and resilience is one of the words we have to look at, can go to a pre-crisis situation, normalcy, but we can also go in another way. And also we have to remember that urbanism and architecture have in cities a very strong inertia. So what is the possible adaptation? We are not dealing with creating new cities in a new world. We are not going onto the moon or Mars planet just to create a new world. We are going to deal with existing cities and also to deal with existing people. Also that. And also the solutions that are proposed often signal the revival of already known urban utopias, because when you have a catastrophe, we say, yes, we have to go to a new world. Even our president just during the first wave said, yes, we are going. I will just make some hypotheses in a sort of essay on futurology based on what we know from the past, while bearing in mind the necessity to differentiate between temporary measures and permanent shifts toward a more sustainability being a word which is revived with pandemics. The necessity of a multi-scalar approach from global to local, from the world, planet Earth, to the home, and even the rooms in the home, and the individual, and also the necessity of durable and flexible planning, something which is at once working and also has some flexibility. So it might be the return of rational planning for some people, to say, yes, we have to be very rational, as we were during the modernist period. But I think it is quite impossible, because, well, what is rational planning? Here you have an image which I took from the American Planning Association. It's for the preparation of the American Planning Association exam to become a planner in the US. they have courses like that, and so I took some images from that. So rational planning is a structured decision-making process in which you first look at interests and values of the society, you identify goals, then alternatives, evaluate consequences, choose alternative that maximizes goals, implement it, and then evaluate the outcomes, methods, analytical. So it's some sort of a scientific technical process in which planning is the optimization of current society. But here we are dealing with something which is in the midst of that, because it was not something the interest of the people. It was not among the values that people value, the things that people valued. So we have some sort of UFO coming there and playing into that rational game, and also. Even since the 1960s or 70s, there were challenges to that comprehensive rationality in planning, because problems are wicked, and a pandemic is really a wicked thing. Knowledge is limited. We never know everything on anything, and so it's not subject to comprehensive consideration, especially in a pandemic with a new disease which is not known, or only partly known, even now. And also, interests are plural. So how are we going to deal with that? Well, not this way. So this might be the way we do not want cities to look like, which is something with big towers in a huge even in the core of the cities, in which people are just very densely put into, even if it is surrounded by greeneries and trees and so on and so on. And I think that we have to look at the past to see how we might manage to change the metropolis. So the necessity of knowledge. And we already know that we never know everything on everything. So, and also the necessity of a consensus, because you cannot change anything if people do not agree at one point, except indeed if you are in an autocratic regime, political regime. So to change things, a consensus has to be built. And we have to remember how the rise of the metropolis at the end of the 19th century sparked debates on concentration and ended in the creation of urban planning at the beginning of the 20th century, which was a solution, which was a long-term process indeed, not a short-term like that. And we also have to look at the short-term and long-term, and not wanting to change the metropolis overnight, because it would be impossible. So the profession of planning emerged out of a series of crises and people's responses to them. So health crises, epidemics, indeed, but also social crises and other crises. And it is not because we are in the midst of a pandemic that the only problem facing metropolises is the pandemic. No, there are a lot of other problems facing metropolises. So for some people, indeed, we can take the health problem as a way of changing the metropolis, and also tackling the other problems which are underlying and still present. And even sometimes they have been worsened during the pandemics. And what happened after past disasters? Well, sometimes good things and sometimes bad things. So here you have two. One, which was some sort of underlying pandemic, which is tuberculosis. So after the First World War, tuberculosis swept through Vienna, Austria. Response was some of the best public housing ever built, a tradition that endures in a city where 60% of the population live in some form of state-subsidized housing. So this was a good outcome, saying tuberculosis is because of crowded conditions and the poor were badly housed, and so on and so on. So we have to have a very good public housing. But by contrast, in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina in 2005, which is a disaster. It's not on the magnitude, indeed, of a pandemic, but well, a lot of people died, and they had to respond. Corporate interests swarmed around New Orleans and attempted to remake the city in their own image, particularly targeting the demolition of public housing, exacerbating urban tensions and displacement. So sometimes these tragic events, these catastrophes, have very bad outcomes. So we cannot be sure that the post-pandemic metropolis will be a better place than the previous one. And then there is a question of who will lead the transition to a new urban world if we want to have a better. Since the end of the 19th century, various groups collaborated and competed at once to propose a better, livable, safe, healthy, and inclusive city. At first, during the second half of the 20th century and the beginning of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20s, there were architects, social reformers, hygienists. Then, during the 20th century, engineers came and were at the forefront of planning. Rational planning was also something which had to do with engineers, not only, indeed. And today, managers are everywhere. So we have to have a new rational, which is not only in planning, but overall in the workings of the metropolis, in the companies, in the working world, and everywhere. And also developers, also they have their say, and they are fabricating the current metropolis. But the major question here, more than would architects be better than social reformers, or would engineers be better than hygienists, is the acceptability of the proposed solutions. What will people want? The pandemic changed perceptions and fears, indeed, but will they do that on the long term? Are people just willing to go back to their normal previous life and say, well, it will be just an episode in our lives, a very bad one indeed, in which some people around us died, some other were really critically ill, and some people lost their jobs, some people lost their homes, and so on and so on. But they want to go back to normalcy. And so they will vote for people who are bringing what they are wanting. So I think that a top-down solution, or an entirely top-down solution, would not be viable. Governments saying, we know what is good for you, and the return of the all and powerful planner would not be accepted, because some planners would say, oh, this is just our time now. We are the people who know, we are the people who have the solutions. You didn't listen to us for the previous decade, because it was the reign of the developer, the reign of management, the reign of financialization, and so on. And now planners will be back, because we know that we have to plan cities, and we know how to do it. I think this would not be, well, planners are useful indeed, and planners have ideas and they have to express them. But you have to do that in a democratic way, and to hear what people really want, and not just say, this is what you are going to have. And also, I will go now through a certain number of topics through which changes might be made. So first, urban public health. The main concern in the post-pandemic metropolis. I am not sure, because today it's indeed the prevalent way of thinking, social distancing, washing your hands, and so on and so on. And it is interesting, but a lot of solutions have already been put into place. When you look at the English physician Benjamin Ward Richardson, who wrote IGEA, City of Health, 1.5 centuries ago, he envisioned already air pollution control, water purification, sewage handling, public laundries, public health inspectors, elimination of alcohol and tobacco, replacement of the gutter, and so on and so on. He wanted to guarantee hygiene, where green spaces and hospitals were the major places. And today, green spaces and hospitals are the major places. Green spaces, when you are allowed to go outside, you want to go to a green space, be it a cemetery. And hospitals is a place you want to, well, to go out as a living person if you are ill. But also perfectly aired houses, rooftop terraces, clean kitchens and bathrooms, and so on and so on. But also, it was about controlling the bodies and the Victorian obsession with purity. So health might go towards the control of people, also their bodies. You have to be healthy because for the pandemic, if you are obese, if you have a lot of other diseases, you are more prone to die and so on. So you have to be more healthy, and governments will perhaps ensure that you remain healthy, even if you don't want to do sports and so on, or eat healthily. And also the idea is that everything has to be very pure, the minds, the bodies, the cities. So it can go into a surveillance mode of regulating the society and the setting of society. Well, then, in the 19th century, it just ended in the creation of urban parks in the United States, for instance, and in other countries. But these were, at the end of the 19th century, a lot of people just thought about that. And Jules Verne, the French writer, wrote a novel, The 500 Millions of the Begum, in which two men, a German and a French, inherit 500 millions, which is billions and billions of dollars, and they each create a separate city. The Germans create Stahlstadt, which is a steel town, which is indeed polluted, and so on and so on. And the French side creates the perfect healthy city on the other side. So this is also which had some success at the time. The second point is the economy, because, well, it's always about the economy, because if you want to change the cities or the metropolises and even society, you have to have money at one point. Indeed, you can change practices, way of thinking. Indeed, this is a part, but for a lot of changes, you need money. And so metropolises are the engines of globalization, so they are intertwined. And today, the multi-scale territorial system from the local to the global received a shock because the economy is just crumbled, debts are mounting everywhere. And indeed, the shock is cyclical. This morning, I read that Japan had a growth in the third quarter of 5% and so on. And it already had happened in Asia, and also with the SARS and MERS in the 10 or 15 years ago, or with the Spanish flu 1 century ago. But then we also have the pandemic is linked to climate change, to the degradation of milieux and habitats, the meeting between species which are not used to meet. And so new pandemics are certainly in the coming, and we have to prepare for that, indeed. And also an interrogation on the dependency to imports, for instance, masks. We didn't have enough, and so governments say, "Oh no, you don't need them. Now we have them." It's just one part of the global economy in which metropolises are a fundamental part. So, what changes might come? Well, we have to adapt, to transform, and to be resilient. These are the questions: resilience, adaptation, and transformation. If we because sometimes people say we have to adapt and transform, but they do not agree on the way to achieve adaptation or transformation. The urban productive systems, yes, we might have less centrality because they are more vulnerable, but then rural slaughterhouses also were places where the pandemic happened in a very, very, very large way. So it's not only metropolises versus the countryside. It might accelerate the dematerialization of the economy, so automation, services, which will reduce the need for centrality. But it also, on the other side, pleads for an urban agriculture, a better autonomy of urban food systems, with food not coming from all over the world. Also, some say that it might plead for the durability of products because of the scarcity of funds. And I spoke about money. What will the countries do with their debts, mounting debts? Will they reduce public investment, or will they indulge into neo-Keynesian politics? Well, it will depend on the results of the future votes. Is reducing density the solution? When we look at the definition of a city, one of the most often used definition is a place where social interactions are maximized. Well, that means that social distancing is not the way cities are dealing, well, not the way people are dealing, indeed, even in the countryside. But in the cities, they are maximizing that. And this is what makes cities places which are sought after. Well, we can, and to have both words, that is a place where you can socially interact, but also a place in which you can breathe easily and freely. The crucial importance of open and green spaces inside. So you have to rethink the separation between nature and culture. And when you try to rethink the separation between nature and culture, it is a very, very, well, we cannot deal with it in that time span. Years would be needed to do that. But well, this is one point. So how? By reintroducing the health perspective in the design of public space. So to look at big public spaces in which people can interact, but also have some sort of distancing if needed. Do a lot of pocket parks, indeed, because a lot of people just noticed, well, in France, it was forbidden to go on a walk over 1 kilometer from home. Well, a lot of people just noticed there was no green space 1 kilometer around where they lived. And in the UK, so almost 3 million people do not have a publicly accessible local park and green space within a 10-minute walk. So this has to be addressed by creating pocket parks. Even if in pocket parks, if you have a lot of people in pocket parks, it's not a very good thing. Or to think as a system or networks of parks in a city in which you can go from one park to another. In Singapore, they are trying to do that, but already Olmsted, without an A, you have to, there is a spelling mistake. He already created at the end of the 19th century the Emerald Necklace in Boston. Well, he called that Emerald Necklace because it was around the central business district, and there was a system of parks linked with parkways, and this looked like some sort of emerald necklace. And also by the use of rooftops, canopy planning, we might say that, for greeneries, for urban gardens, for socializing, and so on and so on. However, and here there is a quotation of someone from Barcelona. He said, the great advantage of density from an environmental point of view, by reducing costs and the harmful effects of transport and avoiding, among other things, sprawl or land waste, could have negative effects from a health point of view, since it makes the lockdown difficult and undermines the possibility of ensuring social distancing. What would be good for health more extension of the urban area, avoiding concentration in height, would not be good for the climate emergency, intensive use of land, more connectivity problems, difficulties in the provision of services, and waste management. So that means that if you are only thinking the post-pandemic metropolis according to what needs to be done to avoid the adverse effects of a pandemic, this one or a future one, or the future one, because we will have some more, you might just forget all the other problems that metropolises are facing today, which is urban sprawl, which is pollution, which is congestion, and so on and so on. So if you only focus on that point, you miss all the others, and the effect might be the reverse than the one you initially wanted to solve. So you just have to bear in mind that a metropolis is a system in which everything is intertwined, and if you change one of the part of the system, you change the workings of the entire system. So you have to be very, very, very careful when you change things in a city, because everything is linked. But I said in the introduction that some the garden city.
Oh. Christian, do you listen to me?
Alors. Ah oui.
Hi.
Yes.
You are back.
I am back. Okay.
Yes.
I will.
We missed you when you just started talking about the slide about the garden city.
Oh yes.
Which one?
Okay, so I was saying that it was the return of utopias, and so people are already saying that we have to go back to this way, so metropolises are not good, and so on and so on. And so we have to have the central city, which is at most 60,000, well, 58,000 people, and then other cities which are in a system of magnet to the central city with public transport and so on, with forests, and every nucleus would be self-sufficient in that. Why not? But we have to take into account that this might be good for new cities, but not for the cities in which we are living. We will imagine transforming São Paulo into garden cities, into numerous garden cities, because you would have to have about 100 of these systems. You have land, indeed, and the southern part of São Paulo is not very well, not a lot, not constructed as in the northern part of the city of São Paulo. But well, it would be absolutely impossible to put that into place. So that's when I talked about inertia. Utopias are very good when you are creating a new world, but not when you are dealing with an already existing one. This way, they don't work. Even the first garden cities are now part of suburbs. So, well, this. Or is it the return of suburbia? We risk the big return of suburbia, because the last at least 30 years, or even a little bit more, people have said that suburbia is just not a very good place because it's a lost. We lose lands, rich agricultural lands. We have to have long commutes and so on and so on. but today saying the individual home might be the best way to isolate a connected, indeed, individual home. So, but this is nothing new, indeed. This is the first one designed by Olmsted and Vaux in 1869. So even some people are now talking of planning in a new way individual houses, to say, okay, a lot of people are living in individual houses. This is especially true in the United States, indeed. And they say we have to use biophilic designs, which is a concept used within the building industry to increase occupant connectivity to the natural environment through the use of direct nature, indirect nature and space and place conditions. So you can do that, or renew the layout of individual homes. I watched a TV program in which a developer was already presenting the new way of designing the layout of the individual home. So there was a separation between parents' bedroom and kids' bedroom, a big separation, so that the parents can just get rid of the children in another part of the house, because when you have to do house schooling and so on, the kids all day in the house, it's not always very well. It might be difficult. A quiet home office, instead of doing your home office as I am doing in the main room, a special secure room for a safe delivery of parcels, to avoid any contact, because between the woman who is just delivering the parcels and you. So well, this is only valid for big houses and if you have some money, indeed. But well, they are already thinking of that. This makes me think of the panic rooms that were already planned in very rich apartments or houses, in which people, in case of a nuclear war, were just preparing a panic room in which they might go for 1 year with supply of electricity and food and water and air and so on, in case of a nuclear war. And this is, well, in a more peaceful way, a new way of thinking the house in case of catastrophe. Now I'm going to mobility and transit. Indeed, these also were very visible changes in the city. The New York Times wrote a piece on the magic of empty streets in Manhattan, whereas in a normal day, a lot of cars, buses, taxis, bikes, people walking in the streets. So mass transit is absolutely vital to the reopening of cities and the revival of the economy. It also presents significant challenges for public health, because indeed people are flocking into these modes of transportation. Other transit models, from ride sharing to driverless cars, will also have to adjust to the new normal. So will there be less journeys and a new modal distribution? First, well, public transport are the most vulnerable, or perceived as more vulnerable to the virus. So there is a risk of rise in the individualization of mobilities, and so the big return of the car, and also the rise in micro mobilities like scooters, both were veiled into cities. Cars were not welcome and scooters were not welcome. But today, they say, well, you are alone in your car or you are alone on your scooter, and this is the best way to get around the cities now, instead of going in a crowded subway or bus. New bike lanes. A lot of cities around the world have created new bike lanes, and they can be made permanent or temporary. And also to have more flexible forms of transit. For instance, you can go to work by train and then take a bike or a scooter and go back through Uber. So more choices in single corridors to adapt very quickly in case of something happening. And also new technical solutions, contactless screening at airports, which also will enable a more rapid flow from a check-in to the planes, or advanced cleaning devices. But then the new mobilities risk being unequal. The rich will be able to travel less because they can work from home, or they can, even if they can travel by car because they have a car. Not the others. They will not be able to do that. They will still have to travel and still have to use public transport. And there is also gender inequality. More women in retail, cleaning, and nursing, in which you cannot work remotely in retail, cleaning, and nursing. And would it be the return also of the walking city? So more walking, less flying. Well, the benefits of a walkable city, indeed. Here there is an example in Washington, DC. Integrated walkability in neighborhoods within Washington as an environmental feature can increase demand and value of facilities like residential, offices, school, and numerous research demonstrated the importance of incorporating the walkability index in the urban environment and its beneficial effects on health, economic, and other aspects. So a walkable city might be something which is good in numerous aspects of the city. You might have to build wider sidewalks. It's better for social distancing. But for instance, San Francisco closed streets to car in the name of the environment and safety during the pandemic. But someone sued the city, and a lot of people sued the city, because they say, no, this is not the way, you do not have the right to do that. So this is also the social acceptability of some solutions which are at stake. And also decline in public transport ridership in San Francisco, and people bought cars, more cars. And then who will finance public transport if ridership is declining? People will say, no, it's a waste of money because less people are taking public transport today. Would it be new lifestyles, living in garden cities, smaller cities, enjoying the benefits of core cities and opportunities for rapid and reliable transit? This might be. So you will have satellite towns, but also the core city, which is still there. But here too, rapid and reliable transit has a cost. In London, it already exists. People are living beyond the green belt and coming to working in the city of London by hundreds of thousands every day through reliable and rapid transit. Indeed, but these are only the well-paid professional people who can afford that, because you have to pay about up to $15,000 a year just to pay for that transit. So it's also something which is unequal. And will there be challenges to global mobility and other activity of large airport hubs, which are a part of the metropolis, of the workings of the metropolis, with aero towns, with hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of jobs around airports? Only time will tell. And so this is one example of the post-pandemic urbanism, why we should promote parkland over parking. This is a project in a Dutch city of Utrecht, I think, now, in which you have linear parks instead of cars. Another point is smart cities and teleworking, indeed. But here too, global communication was hailed since the 1960s. McLuhan in 1968 spoke of the global village that communication, fast and reliable communication will create. And we still have to feel it, because the global village never materialized, or it materialized only for the rich and powerful and so on. And also teleworking is nothing new. And numerous studies have said it will be the future of works since the 1960s and 70s, with robots on the one side. So a society in which robots would work instead of the industrial workers, and in the tertiary sector, in the services sector, there would be teleworking. But well, it's still not a lot, and even today we notice the shortcomings of that digital age. Because, well, I didn't have any connection for half an hour, and also it's sometimes difficult. Sound is going away, and so on and so on. And it's also not possible for key workers, nursing, emergency, food, cleaning, care, and so on and so on. And it's also changing the division and opposition between home, and work. And this is not always a very good thing, because you work and then you go home and you have your own life. Instead, nowadays, everybody has, everything is mixed, and it's not always very good for the life with your significant others, life with your children, and everything like that. And so, are we witnessing the disappearing suburbs and commuting patterns versus digital relationship between CBDs and new villages? This might be, but only very partial. It's like, well, when new urbanism came along and said, cities are dead, we have to invent new form of urbanism. Indeed, there are examples of new urbanism in America, North America, South America, and elsewhere in the world, but it's mostly for upper classes and not for everybody. Some solutions are beautiful or seem beautiful, but one thing is to have a solution, and another thing is to have a solution for everybody, and not only the rich and famous or the upper class. And also, smart cities and teleworking ask a big question. I already asked it about health and hygiene. It's the rise of big data and surveillance. If we work from home, where will there be any privacy left? And also, we have a lot of apps which are tracking us everywhere. We are screened, and this creates a huge bunch of data, which some belong to private companies which are selling them, like Google. Some belong to the state, which are using them or might use them in ways we would not like to. So this is also a very big problem if we are all digital, because the digital world is not entirely free and democratic world. Absolutely not. There are a lot of black holes in which we do not know what is happening. And also, there is today a digital divide in society, because society is unequal. So will the pandemic bridge the digital divide and create digital communities? Well, some examples are quite good. Here are two examples of current policies. In Barcelona, there is a program called Vincles, aimed at ensuring social inclusion by providing digital literacy training to senior citizens to keep them connected to their families. Well, this is good. In Bogota, the city is promoting community engagement and social solidarity by creating a digital platform using social networks, offering exchanges through networks such as assisting neighbors with shopping and offering rides to medical facilities. So this can be some of the good outcomes of the pandemics. And here we come to one of the major points to, I think, which is inclusion-exclusion, even if there are not very good words, you might say, about urban social justice in cities. Well, the pre-pandemic situations is that the metropolises were playgrounds for the rich. Well, this is a little bit exaggerated, but there was. And this is a quotation: the crisis has exposed how deeply divided, unbalanced, racist, and unsustainable our cities have become. Their future will be determined by the two biggest issues that have defined their past: class and rent. And when you look at the housing market, the value of the housing market, so Savills, which is an appraisal company or banking company in England, estimates global real estate value at $228 trillion, which is absolutely huge. It's about 10 times the GDP of the United States. Housing making 75% of the total. So this is a major point. Well, after the Black Death, rents fell and wages rose. After the pandemics, I think that rents will rise and wages will fall. It will be the reverse. But well, I hope I'm wrong in that. Other people say that the COVID-19 represents a major opportunity because it forces us to look at a population with a deep structural inequality in a comprehensive way, which implies having an intersectional perspective in public policy. And this is the Undersecretary of Human Rights and Cultural Pluralism of the Autonomous City of Buenos Aires. So you have some people who are trying to tackle it as a comprehensive problem, taking into account all the problems of the metropolis, which are laid bare by the pandemic. But well, in big cities like San Francisco and elsewhere, you have more homeless people in the streets now, instead of offering more access and connectivity to everybody. And this also calls for the strengthening of metropolitan governance and of comprehensive planning, as opposed to segmented planning. This was the aim of the quotation. And also you have to take into account things like culture, because culture has really paid a hefty price in that pandemic. And culture is also something which can bring people together in different ways. So according to The Guardian, which is an English left-wing newspaper, two possible outcomes. One, the entrenchment of exclusionary political narratives calling for new borders to be placed around urban communities, or a stronger sense of society as a collective whole rather than an agglomeration of fragmented individuals could lead to a long-term increase in public demands for more interventionist measures to protect citizens, a development that governments may find harder to resist given their readiness in the midst of coronavirus to override the primacy of markets. Indeed, but you have a lot of ifs here. So, in conclusion, we have to rethink the way we plan cities, but the absolute necessity of a democratic process, would it be making tactical urbanism, which is citizen participation, low-cost and temporary urbanism, a long-term way of redrawing our cities beyond pocket parks and art, which are the current ways of doing tactical urbanism, combining durable and flexible solutions? And also, have we to rethink the way and the place we live in? That is, instead of continuous growth, to have, the reverse, to be more place conscious, to be more earth conscious? I don't know. And I have two propositions for discussion. The one was a utopia of the 1930s, Broadacre City, in which Frank Lloyd Wright responds to Le Corbusier by proposing to replace dense industrial cities with small cities, less than 10,000 people, covering the entire United States, covered by highways, and each city embedded in nature with its own cultural and education centers, and an economy of self-sufficiency without land rent and landlords, profit and bureaucracy. So this is a utopia in which you see low density, car-oriented, based on technology, with a lot of communication, freeways, multinucleated, and so on and so on. So here you have something which would cover the entire United States. So imagine this covering the entire Brazil, for instance. And the second is the 2017-2021 city plan of Helsinki. So this is a city plan which already is in place. And the goal is to make the city by 2035 carbon neutral, according to the policies used to design and use traffic and buildings, a mixture of smart and clean measures, improving public transportation on railways, reducing the use of private cars, adding 300 charging stations for electric cars, and so on and so on. Encourage pedestrians and cyclists by increasing their area to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And when you look at all these magnets, they have to be carbon neutral with energy and sustainability, smart mobility, well-being and pleasant, health technology, smart community, lifelong learning, support all ages, safe and security, business-friendly, smart home, smart industry, green space, policy to practice, sport, bikeability, walkability. So here you already have, it might seem, a lot of the solutions which are put forward by a lot of people thinking about the post-pandemic metropolis. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Okay. You can, if you want to stop sharing your screen.
Yeah.
Great. I would ask you a favor, if you can send to me later the file of this presentation, the PDF file, right? Just the PDF PowerPoint, in such a way that I can upload it in the drive of the course.
Yeah, yes, but I on that computer, I cannot transform the PowerPoint into PDF. I know it's an old one, and I tried to send you the PDF, and it was too heavy, so I have to try to figure another way of sending it to you.
Okay, no,
I will do it. Indeed, I will do it.
Okay, if you can send it to me, or
yeah.
If you send it to me in PowerPoint, I will convert it to PDF and then upload it in PDF. Even if you send to me in low resolution, that's okay. Just to leave it to the students. And
indeed.
Okay, I open the question. Okay, go ahead.
No, I put some sources at the end also, which I use. Most are on the web, so it's just some.
Before opening to questions, I would like just to ask you a brief question. Of course, it's not. I definitely agree with you. We don't know where we are going to. We are still in the middle of a turmoil, and nobody has the answer in terms of what we will be the post-pandemic city, and therefore it's much more interesting to ask questions to ourselves, and to question our beliefs, and to question the possibilities that we may have and that we may face, instead of coming out with a final solution. Independently of that, I have a curiosity, because it's something that I really, how can I put it? Not that I don't believe, but I have many, many doubts. And I would like to know your impressions about Anne Hidalgo's proposal about the city of 15 minutes, or Ada Colau, the 25, 30-minute city in Barcelona, either Paris or Barcelona, because it seems to me that the proposition and the thinking was developed previously to the pandemic. And besides, as you said before, it was designed, or it was developed to answer to questions posed before the pandemic. And the feeling, or at least the feeling I have, is that these two ideas, mainly the one from Hidalgo's, is being pushed forward as an alternative to the pandemic crisis. How do you see it?
Well, as I said, I think that some solutions which seem very, very beautiful on the paper just forget that we are already living in a built environment which already exists with built infrastructures. So when people are saying, well, we have to have more flexibility, indeed, but we have to have more flexibility with a lot of non-flexible things. The distribution of housing patterns, the segregation patterns, heavy rail or streetcar networks, the location of work, and so on. These are very fixed, fixed parts of the city. So you might reduce, indeed, the need for this or that. You might do that, but you have to go and to address the fact that also a lot. We are in democracies, indeed, but in a capitalist world in which you cannot change things like that. You have to have the agreement of private companies, of developers, and so on and so on. And also you have to have the funds to do that. If you want people to do this or that, you have to subsidize them or to pay for the new infrastructures. That's a point in which it's very different to plan for a new city and to plan in an already existing city. That doesn't mean you don't have the possibility to do anything, and you just have to say, well, it's this way. Let's leave it that way. But all these things also suppose a vision of the city, which is sometimes a quite old-fashioned vision of the city. It's like Jane Jacobs in 1961, or Lewis Mumford when he wrote against the suburbia. They looked at cities in some sort of rosy way, in which cities were theaters, cities were a lot of social interaction, in which the street was the epitome of social life, and all of this was crushed by brutal renewal policies and modernist policies of the 1950s and 60s. So I think it's also some sort of return to some sort of utopian vision of what the ideal city is. And you first have to sort the social problems of the city, which a large part of the problems are social problems also, not only health problems or transport problems, but they are social problems mostly, I think. I don't know if I really answered your question.
No, yes, it did. I mean, I wanted to know your approach, your feelings. I mean, just guys, any question? Yeah, well, while they think, I have another one. It's just not a question. I mean, it's just a kind of conversation. You addressed also two other issues that are extremely important, and then you got back to one of them in your previous answer. I'm talking about the economic system, and you also addressed that so far, in terms of the economic system that we have, metropolis are being designed or are being drawn or for the rich, for the bringing an intrinsic or an embedded idea that a city of inequality instead of a more egalitarian city. What is your impression in terms of a new wave of utopian cities? Do you really think that we are closer to propose a more egalitarian city, or we tend to keep on the same path, designing and implementing cities of inequalities?
Well, I think that the global trend will be, well, I'm not very optimistic. Really not very optimistic. I think once there will be a vaccine, well, a lot of countries or cities will go back to basics or back to normalcy, to say, well, we have to balance the budget, we have to cut. Even in sometimes it might be, in some cities it might be worse. But they said, well, we have to cut public transport because there is a lower ridership, instead of just pouring some more money. Well, sometimes they will not have that more money, waiting for long-term solution. This is also the short-term and long-term. In cities which will really want to do things, they will say, we have to wait, because we will not change things overnight. So we have to have long-term plans. The pandemic might be short-lived. Well, at least that phase of the pandemic might be short-lived, 2 years, or 3 years, perhaps then. But to devise solutions and to bring really a new city to citizens, we need a generation. So we need to plan step by step, and we cannot transform the city overnight. It's absolutely impossible. We cannot just put the city in another space, in another place. We cannot do that. And cities will have a little bit less money after the pandemic, because they are indebted. They receive less money because they have less taxes. Indeed. And it's not the central governments which will give them a lot of money, because central governments also just, I think it's $12 trillion. The debt grew by $12 trillion. Or the new impetus, the new plans they made, or the money they gave to the people to enable to live and not to starve. So there will be a period after, and so some municipalities will say, oh my God, we do not have any money left, so let's cut a lot of public services or bring them to the private sector and so on. So prices will go up, and profits perhaps also for the private companies. And municipalities will say, well, we bad luck, but we were forced to do that. But some other municipalities will just say, no, it's just the time for us for reflection and action on a long-term basis. But if they want to achieve that, they have to be re-elected for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 terms, not 1 or 2. And this is the tricky part, because at first it will not be very easy. So it will depend. I am sure that some very cost-effective and small schemes, like bringing digital tools to nursing homes, might remain. We will have some little bits, but the overhaul of the working of the city, I'm not sure. I'm even pessimistic.
No, I'm not also optimistic, because one thing, not a question, but one thing that concerns me, as you point out, in terms of home office and so on, we are in fact talking about qualified home office. But many, let's say, quote unquote, unqualified jobs or unqualified services, there's no way that they developed by home office, and most majority of these are not middle-class jobs. I mean, they are low-class jobs. I mean, that's what it is. And that's something that concerns me a lot, because it seems to me that there is a tendency that this gap will increase instead of being reduced, independently of the goodwill of municipalities or whatever.
Yeah. It's also the way people are behaving. And well, home office, I think it is not a permanent solution. Well, I am just hating home office. I am hating doing that. And well, the good thing is I am seeing some faces. I'm seeing at least 9 faces here, which is already, or half faces for some. It depends on where the camera is. Well, but the other one I don't see, and most of the time I just see black boxes with names on the black boxes, which is like tombs in cemeteries. You just have classes in a cemetery with just the name of people on a black slab. So it's, and also, you know, I'm just talking here, and the interaction is, well, I know you very well because I already met you in the flesh in Brazil, in France, and so on. So it's more easy for us because we know how we react and so on. But well, I met with 1 or 2 or 3 of your students also when I was in Giancarlo's, but I recognize. But it's not. It's really not. It's not a way of working.
Sure, I agree.
I hate it.
I definitely.
So this is my personal view. It's not perhaps the personal view of everybody, but I'm longing of having back my class. Well, here it would have been very difficult because except if you hired a plane to come to Lyon and having the class in Lyon with all your students. But I think that the university will not give you the money to do that. So I just prefer to have a direct interaction, and a lot of even economic interactions need that proximity, because if not, most companies would only have back offices and no more front offices, or very, very small front offices. They indeed have divided things between back offices and front offices. But front offices is for actual contact between people, because there are social interaction. Then the interaction is not only, we really very well know that, for instance, in Silicon Valley, they say it's the coffee machine culture or the rowing machine culture. People are interacting and innovating, not in the official face-by-face meeting, but when they are getting to take a coffee, when they are doing sports together, when they are doing things in which they are talking. Small talk brings big ideas. And when you are working from home, you are not doing that small talk. I'm not just having a coffee with you. No, I took my coffee before, as you did, I suppose. And I'm not going just to drink a coffee in front of a computer. I will split my coffee on the computer, and everything will be lost. So, no, it's not a way of interacting. I think it's
Yes.
you can do things with that. Indeed, sometimes it's even better when you have a dreary meeting in which everybody is talking and talking and talking. When it's through the web, well, meetings are smaller, and you do not have all that small talk around, or the lengthy discussion. Less. But I think we need that. Well, we are social beings. The humans are social beings. It's their DNA is that. We are not the only one. Animals are also social beings, but I suppose some plants, they are together, also social beings. But well, we are the real social beings, and we just want to interact. And I would just like go into the computer and to.
Definitely. Just about. Well, just recently I was just to reinforce your idea, and not only in general terms of home office, but talking about teaching and pedagogy. I was listening to, or was in a seminar with Antonio Novo, the Portuguese guy that works for UNESCO today, and he was talking about the pedagogy of presence, the necessity of them that we have as social beings, mainly in terms of teaching and learning and building processes of learning. But I've been talking too much. Guys, it's your time. Does any of you have a question? No?
Christian? Excuse me. You talked about social relations, how that will be in the future. I'm not looking for a specific answer, but we are seeing a lot of authors that are talking about more individualism or small groups that is going to isolate, and the social exchange will be less than is right now. For example, we're going to share ideas with the people that are similar to us, that just are friends, because that's what's happening right now. To contact with the other. I don't know if I could explain that, but the different from me, it's not happening anymore. Do you agree with it? Do you think that the social exchange will be different?
Well, here you have to really make the difference between a cyclical process and a systemic process. As a cyclical process, indeed, now we are confined. We cannot go out of home except, well, I have a social interaction with the baker when I go to buy my bread. I have a social interaction with the ladies or the guys who are putting the baskets in the trunk of my car when I'm going to my grocery store. I ordered online, and so I go there. I have limited social interaction now. Well, I have some social interactions when I go out for a small walk with people going there. But it's now, indeed, we have reduced. We have the inner core. You have the students you are working with, your professors, your family, your close friends. And some people when you go your essential shopping. Indeed, but this is cyclical. I think that most people would like and will want to go back also to social interaction with unknown people as they did before. Well, and there were already some groups which were just interacted inside their groups. In a highly segregated society, indeed, social interaction is already very biased with people of your group and only your group. And even before the pandemic, and in the pandemic, you had, when you look at the presidential elections in the United States, you have people who are not talking absolutely to the other side, and who are only looking at the news and the social networks that are saying what they are thinking. And they do not want to mingle, or they think that the other people are evil on the other side. So I don't think that after the pandemic, these trends already exist. They might be in some places a little bit worsened, but globally, I don't think that people will not. They will still want to go on vacation in places they do not know. They will want to go to the cinema to see exhibitions and the cultural scene, and also sometimes to make new friends. I think they want. I don't think it will be a word in which, this is one of the Guardian said in one of my slides. Indeed, that was one of the possibilities, but I think that, except in small places, it will not be this way. Well, I hope. But I do not have any proof of that, indeed.
Anybody else?
Yes. May I?
Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of research on urban matters, I was thinking, because I'm not very well structured, I think, but I think maybe we could start the research on, I mean, what is going to happen to cities, looking at a few changes that have happened during the pandemic, and maybe, I don't know, but maybe I think there are some changes that are going to go back to the pre-pandemic situation. I see it because I don't know what is going in other countries personally, but what I know is that here in Brazil, people are eager to get back to normal life. And that means going to parties. I just had a party in front of my house yesterday, not me, but my neighbors were throwing a party. And cities are, in terms of traffic and commerce, they are going back to what it used to be. And maybe I think one thing that is going to change is about the social relations, because we are more used now, after these months of pandemic, to these kind of digital virtual interactions. And maybe, as you just said, we did have very specific groups of interaction just even before, but it just has intensified, maybe. And maybe that's something that's not going to go back to the normal situation, because we have maybe realized that there are some things that we can actually do using this kind of meeting, although of course the social relations are not quite the same as you just said. So should we maybe look at these kind of changes instead of looking at major changes in urban spaces? And maybe, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, yes, there might be some slight, or perhaps not slight, but some changes like that, indeed, because we are now used to do things we didn't. We might be closer to some of our friends and family because we Skype or have Zoom with families instead of just going to see them once or twice a year. Now, every month, for instance, we are just chatting or with some friends. We didn't do that. So we might have even more, in some places, interactions with our closer circle than we had before. Will it be at the expense of going out looking for other people? This is the point. So I don't. There will be a balance between both, I think. Because after a while, even if you do with your friends a Skype every week, at one point you don't have a lot of things to say, because this kind of interaction is not doing things. When you have friends and family, you do things. You do watch a movie, do a walk together, or go on vacation together. You do things together. Here it's just talking together. We talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. This is indeed social interaction, but social interaction is not only talking. Well, I showed you a PowerPoint. Well, you didn't see me. You saw some images. We are also doing things because we are thinking and so on, not only talking. But social interaction is far more than a digital relation. You cannot yes. have babies with a digital connection, for instance.
Yeah, I just mean this kind of interaction, I think is not going to change, and people will still be looking for this kind of interaction. But I think maybe some kinds of, I mean, in terms of work, you know, there are some kinds of interactions that can be replaced just in work, but of course it's not going to be the same. And my concern is about how this is going to change the cities and how we relate to the cities, because maybe we are using the cities less often, maybe. That was my
Yes, it might be in a different way or in a better way, instead of having to go to the city because you are working and so you are commuting every day, a long or short commute, it depends. You might do more remote working, digital working, and so use the city in a more active way, in a more positive way, just going there when you want to do something which is interesting for you, not just because you have to. And indeed, going from São Paulo to São Carlos, for instance, instead of having to, you just go there when you want to, or vice versa.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment. There are some crazy things happening. I think I heard of web parties happening where people gather together. I don't know how it happens. It's very crazy for me. But I heard the story of a couple, where a guy went to this web party with his girlfriend. In the middle of the party, he started cheating his girlfriend with another girl. And in the end, I don't know what happened, but they broke up because of this party, and the guy started, dating another girl. So I think this kind of interaction, of course, is far from ideal. It's far from what we look for, but maybe I think there are changes happening. And yeah, no, I'm just thinking loud.
No, it's another way of using the digital world. Indeed, we knew it's not the first time during the pandemic that we used tools like this one. It was perhaps only Skype or only Zoom and so on. So we now are accustomed to a bunch of these softwares which enable that, and we are using them far more than we used them. And sometimes we think it's a good thing because it enables us to do things we didn't do before. For instance, being in contact with family and friends more often, and to see and hear them through the screen. And sometimes it's for other things, indeed. But I am not sure that when we will not be obliged to do that, we will not revert to a more limited use of such tools. I think it will be more, indeed, and a lot of people are certainly wanting to use more remote working. But it's especially the people who have very long commute, and the very long commutes are sometimes linked also to the fact that they cannot afford to live close to the place where they are working because it's too expensive, their salaries are too low, and so on and so on. So it's not only remote working or home working might be just an easy way for some companies just not to address the problem of social inequality. Just to say, oh yes, you just have to work from home. This will be fine. We will not have to raise your salary. We will not have to subsidize the public housing. We will not have to build public housing closer to the central cities, and so on and so on. So, well, perfect. And also, who pays for home working? Even if you are given a computer, you should be given a new room to do home working. And well, nobody gives you a new room to do that. Either you have the means to pay for that, or well, you have to do that in your kitchen, in your living room, in your bedroom, in your, well, I do not know where, but somewhere on your balcony. No, too much noise. And also you have to have broadband, and well, a lot of, even I do not have broadband. That's why. But so it's a big problem, because it's also a way of saying, well, this is the solution. It doesn't cost a lot, and we do not have to address the other problems.
May I speak again, Manuel?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I've just noticed. I talked to a friend. He lives in Bragança Paulista, is around 1 hour from São Paulo, and it's not I don't know the word in English, but a dormitory city, a place where
people commute.
People commute. Yes. And what is happening there apparently is that this friend of mine was going to buy a house, and she started searching for the house in March, maybe February, and from March to now, she said that most houses and allotments were sold. So people are looking for building or living outside of the cities much more than they used to do before. That's maybe one kind of change that reflects this changes of how we relate to work and so on.
Yes, that's something which also has been said for France, because well, when there was the first confinement, about 1 million Parisians flew from the city to go to their secondary homes. Not the poorest, indeed. So this was forbidden for the second confinement. They say, no, you have to stay at home. Okay, but well, that means that some people already have 2 houses, one in the city, one in the countryside. So it's for the others who only have one. So to say, where I am willing to live, because if you live very far from, in a dormitory city, well, if then you have to go to the hospital, well, the hospital is not there, the university is not there, well, you have shopping, indeed, culture. Well, what culture? You might just go walking and sightseeing, but not anything else. So you do not have also what the city has to offer. So it's very good for the people who have both words. And a lot of the people who do that have both words, or are just already entirely working from home, or are retired, or. I think this movement might not last. It is not very big, because when you look then, well, one very good way of looking at that is, are the prices going up, housing prices going up in these places, more rural, more natural, and so on places, and is the housing market just crumbling in the central part of the cities? Well, up to now, not at all. Prices are still growing in the central cities in France, and prices are not growing so much in the outskirts. What was noticed is that people during that summer, they just flocked to the countryside. Indeed, they wanted to have vacation in the countryside. Since it was very difficult to go outside France, they stayed in France. So there were a lot of people around the coast, in Brittany and so on. So this is also the cyclical or temporary versus the systemic. So some people might change to the countryside. As for me, I am living in the countryside now, but it was before the pandemic. And I was very lucky during the pandemic, indeed, with the garden. It is far better than a small flat inside the core of the city. But on the other side, I also rent a small apartment in the city, so I have both worlds, because I have enough money just to pay for both. Well, so it's like that. So when you go only in the countryside, you also lose something, I think. Well, and then it's a choice. As I told you, the post-pandemic metropolis will also be the metropolis that the people will want to have. If they want to go away from the metropolis, well, the metropolis will have problems. Well, it depends on the people who are going away. If only the rich are living there because they have a secondary home, they know they can go to the countryside if they want, when they want, and as they want, you will have more segregation.
You know, Christian, for instance, here in São Paulo, what happened, it's a very significant increase of the market for countryside second houses for middle and high middle class people. I mean, it was amazing. The prices for rental prices, I mean, they get up to, I mean, today it's difficult to find not a huge house, but it's difficult to find in a gated community in around, let's say, 70 to 80 kilometers from São Paulo. It will cost you about at least around 8,000 to 9,000 euros per month to rent. And I'm not talking about a big house. Okay, it's about what, 200 square meters in a parcel of land around 500 square meters, 1,000 square meters, plot, all that. But it's incredible. And you do not find more houses like these to rent. That's something, I don't know how long it will last, but it happened this year.
Yes. Well, these are prices that even the upper middle class in France would not be able to pay. It's tremendously high. Indeed, I couldn't afford that. It's more than my salary. So no, far more than my salary. So no. It's something we couldn't. I couldn't afford. Yes, what we experience in France, instead of the growth of these prices, is a slight growth in the price of vacation rentals in France. But it was also because most people were not able to go outside France because of travel restrictions. So it was a cyclical. I think that this summer it might be a little bit different because a lot of people just said, well, we are not able to go to, well, I do not know, to see the beautiful Amazon or the Iguazu Falls this year, but we will go there next year. We will save and go next year. This year we will go to France, then hop, we'll go there. So yes, I don't know if it will be a trend. For some people, yes, but you also have the idea that the countryside is something perfect, but we also know that, well, in France, we have a lot of problems with we say neo-rural people. So they moved from the city to the countryside, and then, oh my God, the clock, the chimes of the church are banging during the night, the hours, being ding dong during the night. So they have to close. All the cock of the neighbors and the hens are just crying during the night. So they want the cock to be killed, and so you have they go to court. And the court says, no, the cock has to live, or you have to kill it. Oh, so we have these problems also. Or they say, oh my God, there is a farm nearby, and the farmer is doing a lot of noise. He has a tractor. He's working early in the morning. He's working during Saturdays and Sundays. He's always working, and it's very noisy. And okay, you are living in the countryside, my guy. So it's different from the city, and you have to have 2 cars, and there are a lot of things, because there is an idealization of the countryside as open space, beautiful landscapes, quaint rural houses, very old. They are very old, but then they are very also humid. You cannot heat them during winters, or you have just to lose all the character, because the beautiful stones, you have to put drywalls before the stones, so that it's not humid, and so on and so on. So you also have that some sort of idealized, because you rented something during the summertime when it was hot, and so on and so on, and you were outside, and it's very dark inside these farmhouses. You have all that idealized rural world. Just because you have outsides, you have greens, you might walk in your garden and then you have to water the flowers, you have to plant the flowers, you have to trim the hedges. You have a lot of things to do when you have an individual home, which you do not have to when you are living in the city, in which you just buy a flower and then it dies, and you buy another flower. And so it's your greenery inside. So you also have to be very careful on the representation. So some people might go to the countryside and then go back running to the city saying, oh my God, what a mistake. I'm just indeed pushing the argument to the limit. But we have to rethink the relationship between city and nature, indeed. But we do not have to idealize the countryside. Countryside is also where you have not so much organic fields, in which you have pollution, also pollutant, in which and so on and so on. So it's not the ideal place. It might be beautiful from the outside, and sometimes it is really beautiful when you are very rich. When you are very rich, you can go into the places which do not have pollution, do not have noise. You have instead of having half an acre, you have 10, 20, 100, 1,000 acres around your property. So indeed, you are secluded and you can do what you want inside. Or you are in a gated community in which everything is trimmed and clean. But it costs a lot. So we are back to money and social divisions, and what country do we want to live in?
Okay. Any other question? I don't think so.
Everybody is exhausted. I'm talking too much, too fast.
No. No, it's because they are very shy.
Yeah. Very shy.
That's it. That's the reason. Well, Christian, I thank you a lot. And it was brilliant.
Sorry again for the initial problem, but they are putting the broadband. We are getting the broadband next year, so they are doing a lot of work all around, and sometimes we have cuts into the internet. And this happened.
it happens. I mean, but everything was fine. Okay. Well, anyway, thank you a lot for being with us. And when you can, just send me the file and I will upload.
Yeah, I will try one way or another.
No, that's not. Okay.
So.
Okay. Great. Sorry for a second.
Okay. Go ahead, Stephanie.
I just wanted to ask you if you have some articles or productions recently about this topic of post-pandemic that we could have access, because
no,
we
I
didn't
write. I just thought that question because Manuel asked me to think about that question, and so at the end of the PowerPoint, I also thought, because I'm a geographer and I am a human being and I am a social being and so on, so I also want to know what will happen to me, not only to the world. But at the end of the PowerPoint, I put some references, but they are not very scientific, always references. There is a piece in The Guardian, a piece in some paper, and so on. So 5 or 6, I just... on which I browsed why I was researching that. So because there is a huge bunch of literature now being written about that. Indeed, it's as if a lot of the social scientists wanted to be the first to write the definitive piece on what will be the next city. Sometimes they are just doing, re-grinding the same old ideas, or just bringing to the fore the utopias that have already been devised, like the Garden City movement, and they are often referring to the Garden City movement, for instance. But it didn't work at all. On the paper, it's always, you have a plan, and then you have a place, and on the place you have things already there and people. And from the plan to what happens next, this is the question.
I think, Stephanie, that a point that should be pointed out in all these lectures, that as Christian said and reinforced it today, that much more important than a final answer, that nobody has the final answer. In other words, not being dogmatic what will happen, but really what's important is what questions I ask and how do I ask the question, because we are still in a process. Nobody knows the answer. Although, as Christian just said, some critics or some theorics, what they are trying to do is to have a final answer for something that's still in process. Yeah.
Yes, and I think that this is a good way of thinking of today's metropolis, even without the pandemic. What is important, what is not important. So what do we really at core want to remain or to be created afterwards? What kind of city do we want? And we can use the pandemic to further to advance some points. And yes, it's a good way to do that. So it might be an argument for more justice, for more this, for the digital literacy of everybody, but also to say we have to think carefully, because there is more surveillance. Big Brother is not very far, so we also have to say, oh yes, this is very good, but we also are good. We are seeing now that the government might have a lot of rights in the name of that the digital providers have a lot of weight in our lives, and even in societies which seemed very free. For instance, in Australia, I was very, very astonished at seeing the way people, they are confined, they cannot do anything, and the government has the right almost to enter the homes to see what they are doing. And Australia was supposed to be the careless, sporty, very free, no frills society, very open and so on, very free society. And you see with the pandemic that no, the government has a lot of rights, and people are confined since months and months and months, and only beginning to open now because they were just policed during that time. So it's also a way of thinking, well, not only the city we want to live in, but the society we want to live in, because it's a political, well, as everything, it's a political question at heart. Political in the sense of the life of the city, the life of the society, and the way we interact with the world, our relationship with the world and with each other. So it's a very, very, very broad. So it's also a way of being a citizen. Wow, that's grand word. But
we need them.
Yeah,
sure. We definitely need them. Christian, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. And
thank you for being there. The 9 I see, and the 15 I do not see.
Well, you know what? If you go here in there is a way that you can see everybody. If you click in the 3 circles, and then you go to the first line to change layout, it should be something like that. When you click in change layout, then you can zoom in or zoom out.
So, okay. Modifier la mise en page. Mosaïque. Oh, yes.
I learned that last week. One of the students taught me. She's lost.
Okay, perfect. I see a lot of ladies everywhere. Yeah. Some guys, but a lot of ladies. Okay, perfect. That's good.
Thank you, Christian. It was a very, very great talk. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for listening and waiting for me. That's a very long wait.
Oh, that happens. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, bye.
Talk to you guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.